Hey, what's up you guys? Got quite a lot to cover in today's video. Going to start by sharing a game with you which features a new line. So I've got to shout out to a couple of Chess Bootcamp Live members. Pete, first of all, for sharing this idea with me, which I've looked into and I really like. And then also Richard, who requested a bit more information on how to create studies in Lichess. Because I've discovered something amazing that I think makes Lichess better than Chessable, and why didn't anyone tell me before? But anyway, first of all, the game, and I'm going to introduce to you this new line, and it's called the Charlick Gambit, and it comes from the Englund Gambit. Now, I've been looking for a rude, offensive, dirty response to d4 for some time. And I know Craig, our 2,000 plus rated coach, he plays the Englund Gambit in Bullet and Blitz. And this is actually a variation on the Englund Gambit. You see, what I like about the Englund Gambit, so Englund Gambit starts with d4, and with the black pieces you reply with e5. What I like about this is it fits my criteria of knocking my opponent off his stool early on and pretty much taking, you wrest control of the opening phase of the game from move one. So you'll notice it's a bit like the the Scandi. And in the Scandinavian, the best move for white is to take the pawn on d5, right? But the Englund Gambit is a d4 move, and this looks like a free pawn because unlike with the Scandinavian, this pawn is not defended. Now, there are ways you can decline the Englund Gambit, but whatever you do pretty much gives black equality from move one. So takes is the move. So here I've just played against, so we were both rated 1492 because I've dumped 150 points in like 3 days. Okay, but that's absolutely fine, right? Just on that topic, I'm being quite philosophical because I think there are two things that go on, right? Your current rating is not how good you are. Your current rating is a combination of two things. It's a combination of your ability and your current performance, okay? Your ability goes in a range, like we said before. It goes in like a bell curve. And when you're playing at your best, you'll be towards the top of your bell curve. And when you're playing at your worst, you'll slide down. Right, so for me, I was 1667 or something a week ago, or a couple of weeks ago, and I know that is pretty much the top end of my current ability range. And for me to drop to 1500, it doesn't mean that I've got worse at chess at all. It just means that I'm not performing as well because I'm maybe not sleeping as well, or for whatever reason, you know. It doesn't matter, really just doesn't matter, because there's an elastic effect, you know. It's the laws of nature. It wants to return to normal. So, you know, if I work hard, if I work on my sleep, you know, don't have a drink at night or whatever, and treat the game properly, then I will bounce back. I've no doubt whatsoever. Anyway, back to the game. So the Charlick Gambit. So this is the Englund Gambit. Now the normal line goes kind of knight here. Knight defends, queen adds a second attacker to the pawn, and then bishop out, and then you play this queen line with a check and attack the bishop, blah, blah, blah. A lot of d4 players in the intermediate level will be familiar with that, and there is a line that as long as you know what you're doing as white, you will be okay, right? If you are a beginner to improver and you don't know what you're doing, you will lose quite quickly in a lot of games. However, we don't do that in this game. The Charlick Gambit goes d6. And this is proper Gambit stuff. So, you know, we're offering up a second pawn, okay, in return for quick development. So it's a little bit like the Danish, where you say, here's a pawn, here's another pawn. In the Danish, in the full Danish, you offer 3 pawns and then get 1 back. So you actually give up 2. But in return for the 2 pawns, you develop 2 bishops. In this version, you develop one bishop, but more importantly, you're opening up the d file and the e file. Now, in chess principles, that's very often not a good thing. However, I'm a big fan of an open d file. And one nice thing about the open d file is that if you get to castle long, you get to put the queen's rook, bang, straight on d1 or d8, potentially lining it up with your opponent's queen. Now, here we go. So my opponent plays knight out here, I play my knight out here. Notice I've used 3 seconds so far for these moves because I've studied it a little bit, right? He now plays something odd, which is this preparing to fianchetto on b3. Now, what I think I should have done here is put my queen on f6, right? Targeting his rook and also preventing bishop b2. This is also playable, but then maybe knight takes and I lose my bishop, and then the queens are facing off, so no, I don't like that, don't like that. Anyway, so I carry on with what I'm familiar with from my modest study and bring my bishop out here. Now we're going to look at the study in a bit, so don't worry about that. He fianchettos, and I play knight f6. Now here I think my opponent, well, in a second does something inaccurate. So first of all he plays knight b to d2, which is fine. So he's defending this knight. A more common move is likely to be e3 here, with a discovered defense on the knight by the queen, but it also pins the knight. So this is an alternative, interesting. Okay, now, the whole point of this gambit is we've given up the d-pawn, right? So we offer up one pawn, they take. We offer up another pawn, they take. We've got this open centre. The whole point is to castle queenside as quickly as you can and then just throw everything at your opponent. So queen e7. Now this is a thematic move, right? We've pinned this pawn, but more importantly, we're preparing to castle. Now, I don't buy this move. I don't like this move, right? Why invest 1-2 moves in fianchettoing a bishop, right? Only to trade off for a barely developed knight, okay? So he's played 1, 2, 3 moves with this bishop, and it's about to disappear off the board. Now, you've got choices. So I can take back with a queen, I can take back with a pawn. Here I decided to take back with a pawn. And I don't know if that's right, but I like the idea of opening up the g-file because I'm not convinced he's going to castle that way, having no bishop to plug this hole, right? So he's got all these dark squared, you know, the wind is howling through there. And I've still got a dark squared bishop and a queen. So there ain't no way he's going to stick his king there, is it? Right? It's just not going to happen. So he wants to castle this way. So I'm figuring take with a g-pawn, get semi-open g-file, and we're in business. Now he does push e3. He wants to get this bishop out, obviously. So it could go there, you know, it's got a few options. And of course I castle immediately straight on. Now, there are lines, which I'll show you in a bit. If this knight was not here, there are, you know, and the king castles to there, you've got a discovered attack with check option, right? That isn't on right now because this knight's in the way. So he develops his bishop, breaks the pin on the knight, and now h5. And I've learned this move, right? Not in this variation, but I know this is a reasonable move. So it's like, off you go, Private Harry. Now, a3 is pushed, and here I just play a waiting move because there's a few things going on. I want him to castle. I want him to put his king here. I'm thinking I might take out this knight. And I know that if I take out this knight and he goes here, I've got ideas of like, hang on, not at this point in time. But I figure at some point, if I take that, he has to take that with the bishop, not the knight. Yeah, there are definitely ideas. But you can see here, right, I've got all the developments like in my favour. This rook is not aggressive. This rook is not aggressive. None of these pieces are in fact aggressive, right? Nothing's attacking me right now. But everything I've got is lined up against my opponent. And that's what I like. So he castles. And now I take the knight, right? Because here, yeah, that's right. If he takes with his knight, okay, I've got this idea, winning the queen. Yeah? So I get a queen and a pawn in return for a bishop and a rook, which is a good trade. Yeah? So he has to take back the bishop. And now there's no knight on f3 defending this. So the move is queen e5. Right? Just keep the threats coming. Keep him blocking, constantly blocking. So threatening that. And he pushes g3. And now I know what to do. h4. Right? Off you go, Harry. Right? Demolition Harry. And now he brings his queen out here. So Harry takes Gary. Freddie takes Gary. And I would love to play this move, but I can't because there's a bishop preventing that. So now it does get a bit tactical, and white does start to get some counterplay. So first thing is, I don't want him to take my knight and force me to recapture with the only defender, which is the b7 pawn. So I decide to swing my knight around, okay, and now he forks, which is annoying, and he takes my bishop, and I recapture now with a rook, thinking it's going to give me flexibility, might be able to double up on the open d file. He challenges, and I slide across here. Okay, and now I've got two attackers on here with a potential of a third attacker with the knight as well. Okay, so he adds defender number 2, so he's got queen and rook. I attack again, and instead he could actually have put his rook here. Okay, because then I've got takes, rook takes rook, queen takes rook. If queen takes, rook takes back. Okay, so that doesn't work. So now he's looking at a forced mate idea. Check, and this is the only legal move. And then, you know, this is, if you play Puzzle Rush, you've seen it a million times, right? So king c8 to defend this square. And look how low his time is now. He's on 2 minutes 26 from a 10-minute rapid game. Okay, so he triples up on the d file, and I just decide to block it with this. Yeah, be my guest, right? I've got 3 defenders on that now. So he can't do that. So he goes for this, and I just slide f5. He comes back, he's down under 2 minutes now. I should have probably left that f-pawn there, to be honest. I now push trying to bust through here, right? Remember, this pawn is still pinned, so this pawn can't take. The only pawn that can take is that. But now he comes back with this move, so I decide to take and threaten his queen, right? I have to use the clock as a weapon now. Material at this point is equal, but he is getting some counterplay. Right, so we've got an issue. I'm threatening to take the queen. I'm also threatening to move and attack the rook with a discovered check. So here he grabs my rook with check, I recapture. Now queen takes, and he would love to trade off queens at this point. I don't want to trade off queens. I want to attack. Okay, so we come here, 1 minute 37. Queen takes pawn with check. King moves. I know I can do this because the knight is blocking off both of these rooks. He comes back, defending h2. I slide across with check, 1 minute 20. And check again. And here, rook across there, defended by both knight and queen, and there's no option. He can't force a mate here. If queen takes here, I've got queen takes, and you know, it just doesn't work. So queen to there, throw in another check, goes to there, queen in, right? At this point, he's down to 1 minute 1, right? He blocks with a queen, and now I drop back. Now he pushes a pawn, and I push c5, right? Because I don't want this pawn coming in, forking, and all kinds of stuff. And I can't allow this knight to be moved, right? However, with moving the pawn now, my queen defends this square and my rook defends that square. So we are clinging on. Queen comes in, I give another check. And now he decides to step forward of his pawns, which I think is probably an error. I think he'd have been safer here because my pawn is there stopping any further checks, right? But now I give check. And notice that the queen is guarding all this, so the king can't go backwards. He has to step forwards or block with the queen. So he comes forwards. Queen check. And here again, he could simply have gone back there. But he's on 48 seconds now. Check, back to there, and then this is almost a ladder mate. Because his king's just too far forward. He can't get back behind the pawns. The only legal move is there, and that's checkmate. Nice little ladder mate. So, anyway, there you go. My first win in the Charlick Gambit. Now, there's something else I wanted to show you, which I'm extremely excited about. I cannot explain how thrilled I am to have found this. But I have to say, 7,000 followers, and I've been moaning about Chessable now for several months. I did a few videos on how to use Chessable, and I've moaned about it. Because there's something I don't like about Chessable. Chessable, boring, right? What I wanted Chessable to do is to coach me to play an opening, rather than test me on an opening and go, no, that's wrong, no, that's wrong, no, that's wrong, right? There's something about it I just didn't like. I wanted to be able to write myself a training program in an opening line and have it say, okay, when this happens, this is what you have to remember, right? And give me the prompts and the hints and the tips as we go, rather than just go straight into testing. Now, in Lichess, check this out, right? You can, when you've got any chapter, right, of any study, you can change the analysis mode from normal to interactive lesson, right? This is the key, interactive lesson. So now look, so you can build a line like you normally would. Now there's one big condition here, which is that it doesn't really branch, okay? So if you want to do multiple lines, you need a chapter for each one. So you would build, so this is my Charlick Gambit accepted. This is like the normal main line, okay? I'm going to show the book, okay? So D5 is the most common, knight F6, E6, and G6, and now E5. So we're going to play, we're already, interestingly, down to under 4% of the time. So your D4 player is already down to 1/25th of his familiarity, right? But you see D3, you know, maybe one in 3 games, right? So you are in 1 in 3 of your experience. Your D4 player is already in 1 in 25. You see what I mean? So, by a country mile, D takes E5, 63%, so almost 2/3 of the time they will capture, okay? And they're expecting knight C6, because knight C6 is played over half the time. Bishop C5 is the other one, 15%, but now D6, only 13%. So that's another 1/7 of a 25th, okay? So D4 players will see this only once in a blue moon, right? However, you know that if you get D4 1 in 3 times, they capture most of the time, you know, you're already, this is comfortable, right? And I already got a game in this. I studied it, I started a game, I got the Charlick Gambit. You will get it a lot. Your D4 opponent with white, right? And D4 is quite a, you know, it's a more kind of positional opening than the more aggressive E4, right? They're not going to like this at all. So when they take back the bishop. So we'll go over this mainline stuff, right? Most common moves, knight F3, knight C3, knight F3, we meet it with the knight, okay? We saw this in the game. Now, so the next most common move would be knight C3, maybe E3, okay? Knight C3, and I've got a different line for E3, okay? So, I'll just show you this line, right? So now what you do is you bring out your bishop. Right, bring out the bishop, attack this knight, but more importantly, we're clearing the way for the king to castle long. Again, the most common move, E3, and black here wins 58% of the time, right? E3, okay? And now, right, we play queen E7. Right, remember I said this was a kind of thematic move. We are now ready to castle, okay? We've also pinned this pawn, as it happens. Right, so our knight could even come in here, because this knight's pinned against the queen, and this pawn is in an absolute pin, okay? Most common move, obviously, bishop comes out here. We saw this, right? These are all very, very natural moves, and this is what I like. You're going to get the same kind of lines a lot of the time, which is good for me because I don't want to remember a whole load of stuff. And so you castle, right? Bang, castles. Now, in this line, this is the castle's blunder line. Most common move here by white, and I've got this set to 1600, 1800, 2000. Okay, so intermediate. Most common move here by white is bishop to d2. Okay, and that is correct because it's avoiding. So if white spots the discovery threat, then bishop to d2 makes a lot of sense. However, the second most common line that is played almost a quarter of the time is castles. And castles, boys and girls, is a blunder. Now, I'm sure that you can see there's an opportunity for bishop takes h2, check, right? Forcing the king probably to capture the bishop, and then you get the queen, okay? However, that is not the most accurate approach because there is an intermediate move. There's an in-between move that we can play, which is actually to take the knight, okay? Now, this is important. So I've got a hint here. You can add a hint for if they play any other move. You can say, right now. So you take the knight, and the reason is because this knight is a defender of h2. So if you took here, for example, you could have knight takes. Knight takes your bishop, right? And then if you take the queen, they get another bishop because knight comes back round. Or this bishop takes, okay? Or in fact, or whatever. But anyway, so you take the knight first. Now, they're almost certain to recapture. In fact, bishop takes f3 is played 86% of the time, because why wouldn't they? And now you do this, right? And now there is no knight that can take. It's either king takes or king moves. So king takes, you win the queen, blah, blah, blah. You crack on from there, and minus 5.7. So black is basically winning from this point. Your queen's going to come in here. It's just not going to end nice. Okay, now, that's one line. Okay, so that is a chapter in my Charlick Gambit. And the point of this is, you see, if you're a titled, rated, title player who's going to be playing over the board at tournaments and you have to prepare this, that and the other, the edge for those guys is to remember 10 moves deep of theory in their chosen openings, right? That's no good for me, right? I'm not going to remember 10 moves deep. I don't have the time or the inclination or the motivation to do that. And quite honestly, I would be better off training my openings a bit and then focusing on middle game tactics and end games, because that's going to make the difference, right? So I'm not a master. So for me, I do think it's more useful to understand the ideas in an opening rather than memorizing moves. So it kind of frustrated me that it doesn't. So, like in Chessable, you can import a whole PGN and you can do multiple variations in the same kind of chapter, or the same lesson or study, right? And it'll do something and then it'll go back, well, what if this? And you go down there and then it'll go, well, here's another variation. And it can get actually a bit boring. This doesn't do that, but let me show you how it does work, because this is glorious. And remember, it's because we've changed the analysis mode to interactive lesson, right? And you can change that at any point. You can take your existing studies, existing chapters, and make them interactive, okay? And you've got variation moves that you can add to say, but these are for the wrong moves for you to play, okay? Now, so what I do is I click preview. Preview here, okay? Oh, right, so I don't want to do this. I want to go back all the way back to the start. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back to the start and click preview now. and it plays this. And look, I've got an octopus saying, what would you play in this position, right? Find the best move for black. Well, I think it's this, okay? And look what it's doing here. This is really cool. White will accept around 2/3 of the time. Let's surprise them again, okay? And it's saying, best move there, blah, 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 blah. Right? Accepted around 75%. Now we regain 1 pawn with development. Yes, of course we do. Okay? Now, if we go back here, and I go like queen takes, then it's got the hint for when you get it wrong as well. You need to capture with minor piece development. Oh, right, I see, okay? And retry. And this is so much friendlier than chessable. Now he does this. Let's meet this by developing a knight and preparing to castle queenside. Okay, I understand the idea. You see how it's feeding me? I mean, I wrote these things, okay? But it's helping me to remember what to do rather than correcting me when I get it wrong. So, and it also says bishop g4 is also very good. So nothing wrong with bishop g4 here either in that move order. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, 2 knights out. Natural developing moves. Continue to prepare long castles. Okay, well, bishop out here. White doesn't want to mess up his pawn, so defends the knight with his queen. Now for a signature Charlick move, pinning the e-pawn. Aha. Yes, I understand. White prepares to castle short. Let's go the other way and set up a discovery against his queen. Yes, I understand. You see? Oh no, they've blundered, right? And it's telling me it's a blunder. Now it's tempting to launch a discover on the queen with check immediately, but there's a better in-between move. Let's remove a defender of h2. Boom. Right? And here's the great thing, guys. This is public. I create a course on Chessable, and I can only share it with a limited number of people, right? This public, you can do this today. You can learn the Charlick Gambit, right, using this lesson thing. Okay, and here I'm kind of on my own, so now it's boom. Yeah, there we take the queen. Congratulations, you completed the lesson. And there you can go play again, or you can go next chapter, right? This is exactly what I wanted. It's been in Lichess all the time. It's been in the Lichess for a while. I think it knocks Chessable into a cocked hat. And quite honestly, you know, I'm becoming a little bit of a Lichess fanboy right now. I think it's absolutely wonderful. The only request, please, if there's any Lichess community devs out there, can we please have a clone chapter option? It's no trouble whatsoever for you guys to do, but it's a pain in the arse, because what you have to do, okay, if I go click out of preview now, you know, if you want to make a copy of a chapter, you have to go to the share, you have to download the chapter PGN, right, to your machine, and then you have to make a new chapter and upload the PGN for each one. Why can't we just say clone, right? Anyway, so that's that. I've got the same thing for the 2 knights when they don't blunder. 1 knight in e3, blah, 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 and then declined with knight f3. So I'm just going to keep doing that. And this is great. Just build up loads of chapters. Why not? Loads of chapters for loads of lines. Create these lessons on everything that you really need to learn, but with the focus on the why rather than the memorization. If you're an intermediate player like me, that's going to work. So, yeah, Pete, thanks again, sir, for the tip on this. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving this gambit, and I feel like I'm a bit better prepared to go out and win back those 150 rating points. Okay, so I'll try and remember to put the link to... So this is a part of my Englund Gambit... What am I doing there? Don't want to do that. My Englund Gambit study. So I'll put a link to that in the description. You can go along. The Charlick Gambit stuff is all great, but you can have a browse of the other stuff. But I haven't turned them into interactive lessons yet, but this is the way to go. You know, I found it. I found the grail, and I found a new D4 response. So I'm a happy camper. Hope you're happy. See you soon.